In this episode, Dr. Nick Goldenson stops by. We talk about the vaping epidemic that's affecting our youth and what you need to be aware of. All right, guys, and welcome to the Top Deck. I'm joined here today by my co-host, Billy Armstrong, who's going to be leading this interview with me today. And we've got our special guest, Nick Goldenson, who's a leading researcher out of the offices of USC and labs of USC, who's working in the field, or at least the study of e-cigarettes. Is that right? And vaping.
Yes, it is.
This morning, I mean, Billy, you had just pulled up some statistics on that. What was some of the staggering numbers that you read there?
According, well, the study that just came out is that basically, like, now the percentage of high schoolers that are now actually using e-cigarettes is now up 80%, and it's up 50% for middle schoolers.
Yep, and I think the exact number was, so over 20% of high school students have reported using an e-cigarette in the past 30 days. So that's what we call current use. So report being current users of electronic cigarettes.
That's wild, and we'll get into why, if that's a good thing, if that's a bad thing. I really don't know. In my mind, I would think e-cigarettes are less harmful than than regular cigarettes, right? Traditional cigarettes, all the tar that's in there, the chemicals, all those things that you hear, that they do the demonstrations with the bottle where cotton balls are in it, and they're just all nasty and tarry and everything. Is that something that does happen with e-cigarettes, or like, what are the harmful effects of e-cigarettes, if any?
So you are correct with what you said, that the general scientific consensus is that e-cigarettes are safer than traditional cigarettes. Although that's a fairly low bar, right? Saying that something is better than a combustible cigarette, considering cigarettes are the leading cause of preventable death in the United States, is pretty low. So even if they're safer, they haven't been around for very long, so it's a little unclear what the long-term health effects are.
I'm curious, so is there, then what are the studies showing in terms of why there seems to be a rise in so many teenagers or younger adolescents or whatever actually using e-cigarettes and using vape pens now? Is it just ease of use, technology, availability? Is it, I think one of the things I think a lot of people are concerned about is the addictive tendency, that the potency of the chemicals in the e-pens and the e-cigarettes and all that kind of stuff is actually higher now and less regulated than some of the traditional ways that people used to smoke tobacco.
So there's a couple of reasons, and there's been a lot of research on this topic. So one of the biggest factors is just that e-cigarettes are cool. They're new. They're technologically advanced. Kids see them. They are perceived as safer than traditional cigarettes. So that is one reason kids are using them as well. But another big factor is the availability of all the different flavorings. So instead of just coming in the regular tobacco flavor, electronic cigarettes are flavored to taste like fruit, candy, all the different sweet flavors you could think of. There's some that are called unicorn milk. They're marketed with cartoons on the packages, so they're definitely designed to appeal to adolescents. And then also, to get to Billy's point, they do contain nicotine. So even though they don't involve the combustion of tobacco, some of these new brands like Juul, like the technology is really dialed in, where this little device that looks like a USB stick can deliver the same amount of nicotine as a cigarette. Or even as an entire pack of cigarettes. So they can be really highly addictive for kids.
Yeah, I would say so. And so just to be clear, so they obviously all the different flavorings that they're putting into it, there are other chemicals or other ingredients. It's not just nicotine and not just tobacco.
Correct. So to get those sweet flavorings, oftentimes the actual liquid that's being vaporized contains all these different flavorants, or these are the same things that are used in food. And while they're safe for ingestion, no one knows what really happens when they're vaporized and they're inhaled. So, it's not clear what the long-term effects of that are on your lungs and your respiratory system.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say not good.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Well, and I think it's I think it's hugely manipulative. From my perspective, I feel like, obviously the companies know what they're doing when they're, labeling and branding, the tobacco and these e-cigarettes with like unicorn, whatever, or crazy monkey or whatever. Because I mean, like, what types of, what demographic is that, targeted for?
Right.
I mean, how?
I'd say adult women or young kids. That's basically who that's geared towards. Let me ask you. I know we kind of jumped ahead, but I'm very curious about your story, man.
Yeah.
Like your kind of 3-minute background. Where are you from?
Okay, so I grew up in Berkeley, California, born and raised in the Bay Area, and I did my undergrad at UCLA. So that was sort of my first introduction to Los Angeles. Came down here for college, did 4 years in Westwood. I studied psychology, so I've always been interested in psychology and mental health. Hadn't done a lot of work with addiction or tobacco up until that point. Mm-hmm. After I finished, I moved to San Francisco, and I was there for 3 years working primarily in the county jail, working with the psychiatric services there. So that was sort of my first exposure to actual clinical treatment for mental health.
And the reason why I know that, and it's a funny story because actually I'm good friends with Nick, and I'm not sure if you were there or not, but we were walking down the streets of Venice Beach. I think we were walking to the beach or a restaurant or something like that, and a homeless guy, there's a big homeless population here in Los Angeles, especially near the beach, and this homeless guy outside of a liquor store walks up to Nick and says, hey, well, first he said, hey, do you have $1 or do you have any money? And then he goes, wait a minute. He goes, I know you. And I'm thinking to myself, this homeless guy who I don't know what connection there would possibly be between Nick and this guy. Obviously, he's just like making something up to, really try to milk Nick for maybe a 5 or a 10 or whatever he could do.
Look, we all have skeletons in our closet, right? I mean, it's okay. We love you, Nick.
But then what happened? Nick, I could see it in Nick's eyes.
Well, I'll be honest. So I did not recognize him at first. I thought he was, like Brian said, I thought he was just trying to get a buck. But then he said, and I give him credit, he remembered who I was. He said, you're the guy from the jail in San Francisco. And once he said that, I knew he wasn't making it up.
Yeah.
So, he was one of the, we called them either clients or patients, but he was an inmate in the jail who had mental health problems and who I was, on the team who was treating him. So, that was a pretty funny story. And I think we ended up giving him a couple dollars.
Yeah, we gave him a couple dollars so he can get whatever snacks he was looking for out of the liquor store. But I will never forget that. It was such a wild thing. I don't know, to happen just on the streets of Venice anyway.
It's like, what are the chances of that?
Yeah,
especially from him becoming, being all the way down from, that was, in San Francisco.
His memory was better than mine.
Yeah.
But so that was actually, so Ryan jumped ahead a little bit. So that was, 3 years in San Francisco. And then after that, moved down to LA. And that's actually when I met Billy and Ryan. At that point, I was working at UCLA and also at the VA with military veterans, still working in mental health, doing research, primarily with military veterans who had what we called serious mental illness. Those are things like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder.
Man, and I really commend you for doing that kind of work. It's so needed today. I mean, it was just a few days ago where, the Thousand Oaks, 12 people, the mass shooting in the country bar there, from a veteran who they said had PTSD, and that was something that kind of caused it.
Right. I mean, you bring up a good point. I don't know the specifics about, that tragedy that happened, although I will say, that a lot of the individuals I was working with who did suffer from serious mental illness, statistically, they're not more likely to commit crimes. And they're not, I think there is sometimes a misperception that they're dangerous.
Okay.
And largely that's, not the case, although, when there are stories about what happened, in Thousand Oaks. And
obviously it makes it larger than life.
For sure. And, I don't know, again, I don't know. I don't believe that he had a diagnosis of a mental disorder. He might have had PTSD. From what I heard, he, hadn't seen a lot of combat.
Okay.
I mean, obviously there's a huge need for it.
Yeah.
What is your experience with, people that you've obviously, like the guy that you ran into from San Francisco, right? I mean, you've worked with people in a contained environment, under study and supervision and that kind of a thing, versus you know, your interaction, just candid interactions with people that you've bumped into, with displaced people that are on the streets. And
Right.
I mean, in terms of, like, you know, mental separations, like what you feel like is a difference there, you know? I'm saying between, because you were making a connection between people that are actually dangerous versus people that are not, you know, and that's a misperception.
So I think, you know, what makes a huge difference, obviously, is whether individuals are taking their medication. There are a lot of effective pharmacotherapies for mental illness, whether it be antipsychotic medications or other drugs. And so, you know, I've seen firsthand, or a lot of people, where when they're off their medication, they'll be hallucinating, and once they, you know, start taking that medication regularly, it can make a big difference. It's not effective for everyone, but I think one thing that was also surprising to me was the insight that a lot of these individuals were able to sort of achieve, you know, typically when they were taking their medication. But, you know, I think there's sort of this idea that a lot of times people with mental illness, you know, sort of don't realize that what they perceive is not reality.
Are you saying in terms of, like, their heightened sense of intelligence as well?
Or
what do you...
or more just the fact that, you know, they realize that, hey, like, you know, like when I'm off my medication, you know, I do believe things that are not true. You know, or like I hear voices, I have these hallucinations, I have these sort of delusions of grandeur. But then oftentimes when they do take their medication, they will be able to realize that, you know, okay, I know that's not reality. You know, I was at the VA for a little over 2 years, and then after that is when I started my doctoral program at USC. So at the Keck School of Medicine in the Department of Preventive Medicine, which is sort of a old-fashioned term for public health. And that's when I really started working in addiction, primarily in tobacco. And so that was new to me at the time as well, and that was back in 2014 when I first started. And that was also when vaping and electronic cigarettes first became really popular, you know, among high school students, youth, and then also among smokers as well. And I think what was really interesting to me about the vaping issue is, you know, there are two sides to it, where, you know, the public health impact among adolescents is very different than adult smokers. Where among adult smokers, there is there's a lot of scientists and public health experts who believe that electronic cigarettes could benefit public health if they're able to help smokers transition to a lower harm product.
That
you know,
makes
the
sense.
sort of the whole harm reduction angle.
Which completely makes sense, I guess. I think what a lot of people are wondering is, because it's such a newer technology and a newer shift from that, that, you know, are the studies really there to kind of show, you know, that this is significantly better, you know, and what, you know, are the long-term effects going to be? So,
about how long will it take until your studies kind of determine that?
You know, it's hard to say. I think, you know, since electronic cigarettes have only really been popular for about 10 years, you know, we can't really determine the long-term effects until they've been around longer. There have been a number of studies looking at the sort of more acute short-term effects. You know, as we mentioned, since they don't involve the combustion of tobacco, they deliver a lot fewer carcinogens and toxicants. So that sort of leads to the general belief that they are, you know, sometimes estimates up to 95% safer than a combustible cigarette. Although, to answer your question, Billy, you know, when will we have definitive evidence? I think we're not there quite yet. And it's probably going to take, you know, a number of years to see, you know, if people are using these long term, what, you know, how do they affect them?
How it really affects their health, right?
Exactly.
Man, that's going to be kind of scary to see, like, what happens to people, I guess, you know, 10, 20 years from now, you know, vaping e-cigarettes, if it does have a harmful impact in another way.
You know, and I think to kind of circle back around to what we started with in terms of the news that just got released today, as a matter of fact, is how from your standpoint and the research you're doing, how alarming is that in terms of, like, what we can see moving forward? Because if that's coming out today saying now that the use of, you know, high schoolers is up 80%, the use of middle schoolers is up 50%, you know, I mean, what's it going to be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Like, what are we looking at? And then versus, you know, what it used to be, you know, 20 years ago. or 30 years ago
Yeah.
for high schoolers or middle schoolers or people who
Right.
used to smoke? And why does it seem to be ramping up so significantly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hugely alarming for a number of reasons. One, just that 20% of high school kids are using e-cigarettes. And actually, so research that we conducted at USC found that kids who vape e-cigarettes are more likely to progress to smoking traditional cigarettes. So there could be this gateway effect where kids are starting with e-cigarettes because they're cool, they're less harmful, they come in all these attractive flavorings, and then they're transitioning to combustible cigarettes, becoming addicted to nicotine. So that's definitely one large concern. And so the U.S. Food and Drug Administration actually has regulatory authority over all tobacco products. And the commissioner of the FDA just came out with a press release today, stating that the agency is concerned about the epidemic of youth vaping, and that they intend to potentially limit the use of flavored e-cigarettes if that will help dissuade youth from the initiation of vaping.
One of the things we wanted to kind of dive into too, which you already touched on, was the tendency or probability that now with the vaping and everything else, is that a gateway? Does it lead to other drugs? Does it, is that a tunnel? But also, has it increased the use of, say, marijuana use? Smoking marijuana. What are your thoughts on that, or what has your research shown on that?
Yeah, so first, just in terms of the transition from electronic cigarettes to combustible tobacco products, whether that be traditional cigarettes, cigars, or hookah, or other products that are more harmful, there is a growing body of evidence that kids who vape are more likely to then become smokers. So I think that's pretty firmly established. The term gateway, a lot of scientists are sort of have a little trepidation when approaching that. It's very difficult to prove that that e-cigarettes caused a kid to start smoking, but from the evidence that we've seen at USC and all across the country, it seems pretty clear that kids who have never smoked a cigarette who become vapors are then more likely to transition to smoking than kids who do not vape. So I think that is pretty well established.
I know personally, I mean, my circle of friends, a lot of them vape, but they're vaping marijuana. I mean,
Right.
we are in California, and it's legal both medically and recreationally now.
Yeah,
So
and a lot of people are using, obviously like
But-
CBD.
Yeah.
strains.
yeah, definitely. But that's just at least I don't know. That's just marijuana in there, though, right?
Right. So
Or
we
CBD
should
oils.
clarify, because I think up until this point when we've been talking about vaping, I at least have been referring to vaping nicotine.
Right.
And you're exactly right that now these days you can vape all different kinds of substances. So marijuana, whether that be THC, CBD, it's a really popular method of administration. I think the technology is slightly different. I'm not so much an expert on the marijuana vaping, but it's my understanding that typically it's some type of hash oil that the THC is extracted into. Yeah, the method of administration I think is very similar to nicotine. And just getting back to what Billy mentioned earlier, I don't think there's a lot of research showing that nicotine actually leads to marijuana use. I know that was thought to be the case, that that tobacco or nicotine could be a potential gateway to the use of harder drugs, if you will. But there is a little bit of controversy over that, and I'm not certain that's like established.
Well, let me ask you this, because I'm curious. I don't know if this has come up in any of your research, but just in terms of the technology aspect,
Yes.
right? Because you've got the pens, and essentially, you can they're interchangeable with the cartridges, right? So you can easily get the cartridges, for tobacco, or you can get them for THC or CBD or any of that, and it's just, plug and play,
Right.
Essentially. So having that ease of use, what have you seen in your research in terms of like maybe that kind of ramping up?
Yeah, I mean, I
use
think we've definitely seen this large increase in nicotine vaping. I think that marijuana vaping is definitely increasing as well. when we're doing research, it's really important, when we're asking kids to fill out surveys and things like that, to distinguish, what exactly you are vaping, because vaping has become this sort of catch-all term now. So we really have to be specific, whether it's nicotine. Some kids are vaping just flavoring, so there's no nicotine, there's no marijuana.
So
or
essentially
hash oil.
like hookah, right? It's the same.
Similar, yeah. So I think that's definitely a smaller percentage, and there's some that are vaping marijuana, like we said. So yeah, vaping is this new technology. It can be used as a delivery device for different types of substances.
Are there any other substances that are here now or on the horizon that they'll use to introduce, like instead of nicotine or marijuana? I don't know, other like antibiotics or something, or
I think I've heard there have been some talks about vaping being this sort of new drug delivery device for, like you said, even more medicinal products. I haven't seen a ton of work on that. I've heard some anecdotal reports of kids vaping like methamphetamine or even like cocaine. I don't know how prevalent that is or how exactly that works.
You can just buy those cartridges over at Rite Aid. That's.
But I think there is the possibility. Anything that can be heated and vaporized could potentially be put in a vape pen.
Well, hopefully more things for the better. Here from the medical field on the horizon on that, because that would be nice. That would be a nice new, delivery device to have for those things. Yeah.
Well, is there anything that you personally, Nick? I mean, obviously, I mean, this is your line of research. This is what you're engaged in doing. Is there anything really specifically that's of interest to you, or really engage in?
Yeah, well, a lot of my personal research has focused on the use of flavored electronic cigarettes. There's a lot of concern that these flavorings are sort of contributing to youth vaping and could really be setting back a lot of tobacco control efforts. So one thing I learned was that, I guess, before 2009, there was a law passed that banned all flavored combustible cigarettes. So before that, there were clove cigarettes, there were strawberry cigarettes. The federal government really wanted to reduce youth tobacco use, so they banned all flavored combustible cigarettes. And I think that actually, it was successful in reducing youth smoking. So then right after that law was passed, then e-cigarettes really started taking off in terms of popularity. That ban on flavorings did not apply to e-cigarettes, so that's why e-cigarettes are available in all these thousands of different flavorings, whether it be pina colada, mango, all these things that are appealing to youth and might also be appealing to adult smokers as well. But it was really encouraging today in that same press release from the commissioner of the FDA. He said they really want to crack down on the sale of flavored e-cigarettes to adolescents. So they didn't come outright and ban flavored e-cigarettes, but they are going to make them more difficult for adolescents to purchase, which I think is a really strong step in the right direction.
Did they say what kind of measures they are going to implement to make it?
Yeah, so I think in physical storefronts, they're only going to be allowed to be sold in restricted areas. So I think, like if you think about a convenience store, it won't just be behind the counter anymore. I guess it'll be a sort of area of the store where all the customers have to be at least over 18 years of age. And I think that's, on a federal level. So in California, it will probably be 21, since we passed the Tobacco 21 law, which which raises the minimum age to purchase tobacco to 21 years of age.
Wait, that happened?
That already happened.
Yeah,
that happened
really?
Does that actually apply?
That's good. I had no idea.
E-cigarettes?
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yeah, so that applies to all tobacco products. That was a state law, so that's specific to California. And then there's also been some regulation and legislation on the local level. In San Francisco, they just banned all flavored tobacco products, including menthol flavored cigarettes, all different types of flavored e-cigarettes. I think Beverly Hills actually passed a similar law banning flavored tobacco products as well. It's encouraging to see these regulations being proposed and enacted on the federal level, but there's also a lot of other avenues for these goals to be accomplished. Quitting smoking is one of the hardest things to do. A lot of smokers want to quit, but they're unable to. I think that's one aspect of the e-cigarette that has a lot of the public health community excited, is that this is asking people to quit outright is incredibly difficult, and even the available nicotine replacement products like the patch, the gum, are not very effective among heavily dependent smokers. And even the leading medications like Chantix and are not very good at helping people quit. So if there is a way to help people at least reduce their use of the most harmful products, which is cigarettes, that is one way that e-cigarettes could be beneficial to public health.
Well, Nick, it was great having you on the show. Thanks for stopping by.
Anytime. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much, brother.
Billy?
Yeah, as always.
Yes, sir.
And thank you to you guys for coming by. It's been great to be able to share the top deck with you, and we hope you'll join us again for the next episode.
Thank you to Amaze VR. Little toast
to Amaze VR and all of you in virtual reality cyberland.
We'll see you next time, guys.
We'll see you next time.